Okay, now we're going to solve some polynomials by factoring. So these aren't quadratics anymore, but we can factor and still find some solutions. So in step 1, what we're going to do is move the 12x squared over to the left-hand side by subtracting 12x squared from both sides. And now what we're going to do is factor out a common factor. And so both of these terms have an x squared and a 4 in there. So we could write this as 4x squared times x squared minus 3 times 4x squared equals 0. So both those terms have a 4x squared, so we can factor that out. So make this 4x squared and then times x squared minus 3 equals 0. And you can check that by multiplying 4x squared back in, and you should end up with 4x to the 4th minus 12x squared. Okay, so once you've factored out the 4x squared, now you can solve this because you have kind of two choices, either 4x squared equals 0 or x squared minus 3 equals 0. So the only way that the thing on the left-hand side is going to be 0 is either the 4x squared has to be 0 or the x squared minus 3 has to equal 0. So there are two options. And in the first case, if you divide both sides by 4, you'll get x squared equals 0, so x equals 0. And in the second case, you get that x squared has to equal 3, which means that x has to equal plus or minus the square root of 3. So now you're getting 3 solutions. You either get negative square root of 3, 0, or square root of 3. Okay, in the next example, we're going to start by moving everything over to the left-hand side again. So I'm going to subtract 8x and subtract 12 from both sides to get 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 8x minus 12 equals 0. And then we're going to look for a common factor, although this one's a lot trickier. What you need to do is kind of look at these first two terms and these last two terms, and if you stare at them long enough, you'll see that 2x plus 3 is actually a factor of both. So in the first case, you can factor out x squared times 2x plus 3 minus, and the second term is 4 times 2x plus 3 equals 0. And again, that's tricky to see. It's one of those things that if you're told to factor, you must assume that there's some way to do it, and you just kind of do trial and error until you see how to group the terms so you can factor them correctly. And so now this is equal to x squared minus 4 times 2x plus 3 equals 0. And then again, either x squared minus 4 equals 0 or 2x plus 3 equals 0. So in the first case, if x squared minus 4 equals 0, the second case is if 2x plus 3 equals 0, and we'll get, let's see here, if x squared minus 4 equals 0, then that means x squared equals 4, so x equals plus or minus the square root of 4, which is 2. And in the other case, you get 2x equals negative 3, so x equals negative 3/2. So you could write the solution like that, or your online homework might want you to write it like this. So you'd have negative 2, negative 3/2, and positive 2 is your solution set.